Did you know that Bungie is actually working on a mobile game? It's true, there's been little pieces of information here and there, and while it's been more or less confirmed that it is going to be an FPS, which makes me just a little bit sad that we're going to have the Destiny 2 equivalent of Diablo Immortal, I came up with a few ideas of my own, and in fact, even if Bungie decides not to go this route, I think this would be a pretty cool, interesting replacement for Gambit. Welcome back to another TDT's video. What we do in this particular series is we take exotic ideas from you all in the comment section, our Discord, as well as our Patreon, and then we feature them and we give a bit of insight as to how this would work actually in-game, whether they be good, whether they be bad, etc, etc. But I've got quite a few that I really like. We've got some really great ideas this time around, stuff that I'm thinking, yeah, this could 100% be in the game. And normally when we've done these videos in the past, I've shown some of my ideas for exotic ideas, but this time around I want to do something a little bit different for my exotic idea, so stick around for that, because this is an entirely new game mechanic that I'm going to propose here with some decently fleshed out art. Anyway, let's jump straight into this here with Valorvin, with an idea from our Patreon with the Royal Decree. This is a Stasis Trace Rifle. Now immediately I'm hit with a pause and I think to myself, Agriceptor exists. This is going to have to do something significantly different in order to eliminate itself from the Agriceptor, and it did a great job. Energy Siphon, kills and rapid precision hits, generate stacks of siphon energy. Use the alt fire to consume the stacks to generate a stasis overshield based on the number of stacks consumed. Now that right there, I love this right here, because this plays perfectly into another aspect of stasis that we have, but we really don't have like a name for it. This is sort of like a soft stat, if that makes sense. But Stasis Overshield isn't really something that we can really play into. So I think that this could kind of push us into making us a straight up, a whole new keyword that we could play into with this, something that already we have, it's just not official. And the second part of this, the part that I really like that already is kind of, that's pretty cool. That's all right. It plays into like the whole tankiness nature of Stasis. But the second half, oh man, energy transfer. This weapon's beam tracks allies when fired from the hip. Hitting allies generates them a stasis overshield, consuming stacks of siphon energy. I honestly think that you could probably allow this to generate it for, well, not for free per se, but you know, obviously the cost of actually firing the weapon. There's so much to this. I really like this idea. Yeah, I think that you could even go that whole route and just allow it to generate that overshield, you know, for free, quote unquote. Obviously it would still cost ammo, but honestly, fantastic idea, really cool stuff, and let's me know that there are still some really good exotic ideas in the community. Let's jump to one from the YouTube comment section. This is the Stasis Fusion Rifle called the Snowdrift. This intrinsic perk is called Modified Fusion Core. This weapon can be charged indefinitely, with the amount of bolts fired increasing as it's charged longer. This ammo would be kind of consumed as sort of like a trace rifle would work, where it would consume it like per bolt, not necessarily per burst, if that makes sense, but it gets better. The exotic perk is called Absolute Zero. After charging this weapon for an extended period of time, the player begins to emit a stasis slow field, sort of like a dust field grenade around the user, affecting teammates and enemies, effectively slowing anything that is nearby, assuming eventually that you would eventually freeze and the weapon would fire automatically, or maybe you would just take the ammo and put it back into the gun. Now, all this is actually pretty good, and when you look at this in terms of balance, it doesn't seem at face value that it would be that overpowered until you look at this into the context of PvP. In the context of PvP, this weapon is broken strong. I think it could be changed, and it may not even immediately be obvious what is broken about this. It's not the fact that you could overcharge this weapon. I think that's perfectly acceptable. It's perfectly fine. It's the fact that this weapon can be charged and held. What this does is it allows you to sort of premeditate going around a corner with something like a fusion rifle, which completely removes the weakness of the fusion rifle, like that charge up and fire. If you can premeditate that and you can like have it ready to go as quickly as you would have, like, say, a sniper shot or a shotgun ready to go, that can be a big problem. And the other side of things is that that slow period, that time of overcharging and actually generating that slowness could theoretically be negated with the Firewalkers, I believe they're called, from the Titan. That is a problem right there. I think that that could really power drive this thing into some extreme territories. We really got to be careful because those boots exist, doing anything that slows the user, because those can effectively negate it. So using that as a downside, we really need to be careful that we either customly code it to override that, or we just avoid it altogether. But I like the idea. It's a reason why it's on this list. Jumping back to our Patreon, by the way, if you do enjoy this series and you want a better chance of actually getting your idea featured, join us on Patreon. It just helps out. This next idea is from the White Russian. This has been a few times we've featured this guy. This guy has some solid stuff. The exotic idea is called Think About It. It's a concussive special ammo shotgun. Obviously, you know, shotgun special ammo, but a concussive shotgun kind of had my interest. The exotic trait is called Come On. This shotgun doesn't fire pellets, instead it fires a heavy disorientating blast. When aiming down sights, it makes the blast range smaller. So I had to rework this a little bit. You can see how I kind of adjusted this in the actual exotic that ended up coming out of this. The only reason for that is that I just felt like it was just a little bit wordy, and it was trying to do maybe something that's already being done by tractor cannon. So rather than it doing that, I pictured this being more like you would fire what is kind of like a canister, sort of like a grenade launcher. And when it would explode, it would push targets away from wherever it landed, making it a little less like the tractor cannon, yet still having that sort of crowd control tool to it. I don't think it would be good for this thing to insta-kill on a hit, being that presumably this does have slightly more range than the average slug shotgun. But I think it would be cool that if you did hit somebody directly with this thing, it would absolutely yeet them, and more than likely yeet them hard enough to kill them by splatting them into the wall. I think that would be great. Obviously, you know, it's still a special weapon, so you know there's the trade opposite of that. It'd be great in PvE as a crowd control tool, exclusively a crowd control tool, not something that you would ever use for DPS. But there is the second trait of this, and this really is, oh man, I love this idea so much because I've been yearning for a Sentinel Titan build that is played around like pushing people away from stuff. But this really, I really felt like this sort of dropped the ball. This is, hear me out, this is the exotic trait, which the energy type for this weapon can be switched, changing the blast debuff accordingly. Again, I tried my best to try to rework this, but I really feel like that's just trying to shoehorn in just kind of something else into it. I feel like that's just really not what this weapon could go for. I feel like if you just went hard in on the ability to crowd control stuff, that would be great. I'm not even entirely certain what you would do. You can let me know in the comment section. By the way, if you have an entire exotic idea of your own, let me know in the comments as well. That's another great place to do that. But anyway, I just felt like that dropped the ball a little bit. I felt like there could have been more to play into that whole crowd control idea rather than kind of like just throwing hard light into the middle of this, or dead messenger, or whatever the kids are relating to switching damage types nowadays. Okay, and the last idea in our featured exotic idea of the week is an exotic heavy glaive. Already got my attention. This is the Gungnir. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I did look it up. It does seem to be Nordic, so I'm probably slaughtering it because I am so American. And by the way, happy Freedom Day, everybody. The perk is Ineffable Sacrifice. Melee hits slowly drain your health to increase the damage of this melee. Kind of cool. It kind of has like this trade-off of like, hey, if you're gonna go win with this thing, you're gonna kill a lot of stuff, but you're gonna be hurt in the process. There's ways to obviously negate that, you know, doing things like, you know, Devour, healing on Solar, you know, there's stuff that you can do for that, but it is something to keep in mind as sort of a drawback to that increased damage. And then the exotic trait is the Allfather's Wrath, and this is what got this exotic idea featured. This is as simple as this glaive fires a steady beam, sort of like a trace rifle, rather than a single projectile. That is so cool. I think that could be a whole trace rifle subfamily, even ignoring everything else that came out of this exotic. If we literally just took that idea and said, let's take that and let's make that a whole new archetype of glaive, that's so cool. It could charge differently, and rather than it charging in one big chunk, you know, like it does, where every single hit charges about 25%, this could charge it every single hit that you get charges like 4 to 5%, right? So multiple hits, very much like a trace rifle. That is very neat. I love that idea. I also love the idea of an exotic heavy glaive. I think that's really cool. There's so many ideas that are just working for this here that just could work by themselves, yet it's all been put into an exotic. So very cool stuff. I like it a lot. But now I want to tell you about this idea that I have. Now, I've been thinking to myself, Gambit technically exists. Boy, does it technically exist. Now, I know I'm kind of like giving some shade at the people who really enjoy Gambit, and that's fine. Far be it from me to say, you know, don't enjoy Gambit. If you enjoy Gambit, you do your thing. I mean, I've heard a lot of people in our comment section tell me that I shouldn't be enjoying PvP, which, you know, whatever. But, you know, if Bungie were to theoretically make either a mobile game and use the Destiny universe that is completely different than what they typically do, or if they were to finally try to do something more significant with Gambit than mildly tweaking some stats or when people invade and such, perhaps this could be the way to do it. What if y'all ever played Inscription? What if instead of Gambit being this whole separate half PvP and half PvE, 100% not great game mode, what if this was an entirely new game? What if this was the Gwent of Destiny 2? If you guys don't know what Gwent is, it's like a card game based in The Witcher. Pretty solid game from what I've heard. I've unfortunately never played it for myself. And you probably, if you are familiar with this art, know kind of generally where I'm getting this ideas from. But what we're looking at here is sort of Destiny's Gwent. This idea would be as simple as a card game, and there would be, you know, stuff that you could collect, plays into Destiny's idea, lots of lore we could draw from, lots of different enemies we can do. You're seeing some of the stuff on screen. Obviously, I didn't go crazy and make a bazillion, but I made quite a bit. I made different types of enemies. You can see that there are some different mechanics, like this one particularly here I really enjoyed, which is the drop pad. Upon instantly summoning this thing, it will deal 10 damage to an enemy of your choice, which is just perfectly in style of the drop pod. Here's an exotic in here. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think of this idea. If you would prefer something like this over Gambit and how you would think it would work. I think it would be a lot of fun to play matches against other players, or even have a drifter AI set up to try to fight you in some sort of, like, you know, PvE sort of thing. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I personally would love this. I would actually, unironically, I would play this probably more than the base game right now, because this would offer me something different to try, which is really what I think Destiny is struggling with. It is getting so samey that it needs something unusual like SRL or space combat or something like this card game to kind of just mix it up, just to give ourselves a breath of fresh air. Because who plays other video games? Me, right? No, we don't play anything other than Destiny. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this stuff. Make sure that you're subscribed and leave a comment down below if you have an idea of your own. Bless your faces. And deuces.